Welcome everyone to the third episode of our complete AR fundamental course. As promised, today I am going to show you how the code works for the user defined targets in Vuforia and Unity. I am going to use the same dataset as I used in the last tutorial. I'll also give you the link in the description box below. Just create uh, Vuforia air camera. By the way, I have done all the configuration that we already done couple of times, so I'm not gonna waste your time by showing those things. So now the air camera has been created. Next, create an image target, and from that, let's now let's create a image target now. Sorry. By the way, I have configured all these things already. I know you already know those things because we discussed this 2 times, so I have not covered that. Uh, by the way, I have configured all these things previously because we already covered those things in the last two tutorials. Okay, so now create an empty game object, rename it user define. Now create a image target like this, and from this inspector in the type, press here and choose the user defined. Also give it a target name, just rename it like user maybe. Finally, we have to go to this user defined target, press this add component button and start typing user. Here you go. So this one, and click this start scanning automatically. So this is a built-in class that Vuforia provides. We'll discuss about this thing after a few minutes. Now we need a script, so make a C# script, rename it what, maybe UDT manager, right? So before starting the coding, let me explain to you the workflow of the user defined target. So the first thing is this user defined target building behavior. We already saw this thing. Where we saw this? Here we just added this script, right? So this particular script is responsible for creating or building image targets in runtime. You see, this is the image target, right? But there is no actually database of this target, so we don't know that which is the particular image we are gonna track. So this script is responsible for creating those things in the runtime. What next? So this is the object tracker. So when we are making these targets, we'll need a database to handle those things. If you remember, when we were using the marker based augmented reality in the first tutorial, we downloaded a database from the developer account, but in this case we don't have any database, so we have to make the database in runtime. What object tracker does, it can manage those datasets. Next is the dataset. It's the thing that can hold all the information of the trackable. And there is two other things. This is the trackable source. This trackable source will help the trackable to link it with the dataset. Okay, finally the trackable, this class is responsible for any kind of target. For example, this is the image target we are using, so in our case the trackable is the image target, right? So again, to sum up, this first thing, it will be responsible for all the image target to make it in runtime. Second of all, the object tracker, it will manage those database, and database is the thing that will hold all the information of the trackables Trackable source will help the database to manage the trackables, and finally the trackables are these image targets. Let's start by importing those namespace. We'll need the Vuforia namespace because all the script, all the classes I mentioned earlier is under this Vuforia namespace. And next we'll need to extend this interface, and you will see this arrow, right click and do this. If you are using mono behavior, you'll also find a functionality called refactor, so you can get the same functionality from the mono behavior editor also. Click this implement inheritance, all the method will be implemented here. Now I'll also need the start function. I removed that by mistake. Nice. Okay, so at first I will need this class, and I'll name it target behavior, maybe UTT. Let's go like that. Next I need to find it out or instantiate this particular class, so try to find this one, user file. So in this line, get this right. Okay, so if this is found, that means if this is not null, then what we need to do, we have to say this particular behavior that this is the class, right? This is the class which will be responsible for all the events. So register this class as your event handler because it has this interface. Okay, so we'll say this. Done. So as we mentioned that this is the first class, this is responsible for creating or building the image targets in runtime. So we have set it up. Next thing we need to do, we need to create a data set. Let's do that. To create a data set, we'll need a object tracker and the data set itself. Okay, so on initialized, this particular event is called, or this particular method is called when this is successfully initialized, right? So when this particular target behavior is completely initialized or successfully initialized, then this method is automatically called. So first of all, we should instantiate this object tracker. So as I already mentioned, object tracker is responsible for creating the data sets, right? Or managing those data sets, sorry, managing those data set, right? Now as you can see, this in the tracker manager there is a lot of other tracker. We need the object tracker, so we did this same kind of thing with this tracker manager instance, right? So now again similarly we'll try to find out that if this this exists, right? If object tracker is not null, So if object tracker is not null, that is if this line executes successfully, if it get this tracker, then we'll create those data set. So let's do that. Object tracker dot create data set, and we'll assign this data set to our data set, right? Nice. So now we have created this dataset. Now we have to activate this one. Okay. So now we have successfully completed the first step. We have created a dataset, and with the help of object tracker, right? Now the next thing we have to do, we have to start building the target with the target behavior. As I already said couple of times, that this particular class is responsible for creating or building the image targets, and the image targets are those things, those are responsible for all the tracking, right? So let's get back to the scripting. So we have three methods we had to implement from the interface. We have already implemented this onInitialized method. Now we need to implement the rest of the two. First of all, take a look on the onFrame quality change method. So this particular method is responsible for the update of the frame quality. So that means whenever you are moving the camera, if there is a image, this method is called, and this method just calculates the frame quality or the picture quality, how good is it to be a image target, and give you the output with this frame quality variable. But you see, this frame quality variable is a local variable, right? So we need a global variable for this. So first of all, let's create a global variable for this frame quality. And we should assign that particular, sorry, we should assign this frame quality here, right? Done. So now let's get again to that point. We have to try start building the target. So now I am going to use a new method, just creating a new method that will build that target. And I'll search for if this particular quality, right? We have this frame quality from this particular method, so we know that when the frame quality is good, this variable will be updated. So what we will do, we'll say if the UDT frame quality equal to frame quality high, this one, right? If the quality of that particular image is high, I want to build a new target, right? So to who is responsible for building targets, let's go to the documentation again. This is the class responsible for building or creating image targets, right? So where is the instance? This is the instance. So udt behavior dot build new target. You'll see there is two parameter. One is the target name and another is the screen size width. So first of all, let's think about the name. So a name can be anything. You can just name it like maybe S, whatever. But the problem is that whenever it finds a new target, the name will always be the same. So one solution is that I can create a new integer variable and increase it value when a new trackable is found. And finally I should pass that variable here. And the second parameter is the screen size width. So this is the width of the image target. We can find the image target from the editor, right? And we can pass this in our script so that we can get the width. First of all, create an instance of this particular script. So image, so image target behavior, this one, right? This class, these two are the same, and name it like target behavior. Now you can just pass that particular target behavior here. As we need the width, we will use this x value. We have successfully completed these two steps. The final step is to create a trackable object. So now when this build new target method is called, it search for a new trackable source. If a trackable source is found, it shout that yes, I have found a new trackable source, and this particular method is then called. As we are going to use the dataset, we have to first deactivate. So pass the dataset here, and now we'll need to use a new trackable and add that trackable to our dataset, right? So create a trackable, and you will find that there is two things. First of all, this is the trackable source, so this is the trackable source we are looking for. So trackable source, and the second one is the game object. So this is the game object with which the trackable will be attached. That means for ourselves, this is the image target, right? So there is this trackable. So we'll pass this behavior. Finally, we should active the dataset again and start tracking again. A few things to consider before we finalize the project. So first of all, we will need this variable to be public so that we can easily assign this from the editor. So go to user defined target and drag this image target here. Finally, we'll need a UI component so that we can call the method. So I'm using a button, rename the button like click, and add this event here, drag and drop this game object, and search for our method, this build target method. So right, so whenever this button is clicked, then this build target will be called, then eventually this one will be called, and that will do the rest of the work, right? Great. So now our work is pretty much done. Whatever you want to augment on top of the image target, put it here. I'm gonna use the cartoon cat like the last tutorial. Great. So now if I try to run this game, you'll see that there is an error. So there is this error. So you can also face this problem. To fix this, you have to go to the Vuforia configuration and turn all the database off, because we are not using any databases, we are using our own database in the runtime, right? So you have to check all this database off, then if you try to play this game, it will work. Thank you for watching. In the next tutorial, I'm going to discuss Boomwork and how can you make it with Adobe Illustrator, and also do the coding for Unity. Thank you. See you in the next class.